Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things that happen here. How stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?
Coffee. Without it, we would never have had the Industrial Revolution. We'd all be still living in Europe in mud huts. Here in Laredo, we have the Organic Man Coffee Trike. 4501 McPherson, the best coffee on the planet. If you can't get to Laredo, you can order from the Organic Man Coffee Trike.shop. Welcome to Storytime with Chris James. Hopefully I got rid of that beeping noise. My BIOS warning code or something was going off. I don't know what the problem was. I couldn't find the right code, but anyway, I hope I got rid of those beeping sounds. If I didn't, you'll probably hear it sometime during the show. And with that, let's get going with the adventures of Pam Bogus while she's looking for Sasquatch. Pam really wanted a nice long shower. I don't suppose there's a camp shower around here. Donna threw a package over to Pam. Here, use these. Pam looked at the package. It was a thing of baby wipes. How am I supposed to bathe with these? Yeah, just pretend that they're little washcloths and scrub away. Oh, and put the used ones in here. Donna held out a plastic trash bag. You pack it in, you pack it out. Pam stepped around behind the tent. It's not that she was squeamish, it's just she felt uncomfortable undressing around anyone. Okay, she was squeamish. Pulling her hiking boots off, Pam dumped a cup full of water from each one. Her socks were a combination of brown and green. They had been white just a few hours ago. Squeezing the water from each sock, Pam hung them over a tree limb. Everything she had on was wet and covered with odd colors. They hadn't been before this hiking trip through the underworld. This was not what I had in mind when I agreed to come on this expedition. Pam's jeans were wet and both knees were torn. As she unbuttoned the snaps and the zipper, it felt really odd getting undressed out in the open. Even with the tent on one side and thick brush all around, Pam felt like she was being watched. But watched by who? Looking over each shoulder, Pam had a view of dark trees and bushes. Pam did her best to clean up and then hung her pants and shirt over another limb. She pulled on some shorts and a t-shirt, and it was going to be a warm night. Set your boots by the fire so they'll dry out. Madonna had on another pair of boots as hers were drying. Her aunt had brought 2 pair. There was a big pan of something over the fire. Hope you like rice and beans. It's kind of a staple out here. Right now I'd eat one of my socks. Pam was hungry from all that fresh air and exercise. You can soak one in that pan of hot water and make tea. Now, Pam wasn't sure if her aunt was joking or not. Once the beans and rice had found their way down into the digestive system of the 2 campers, they sat back and relaxed, staring into the jumping and dancing flames. My sister tells me that your mother says you're gifted. You can see and hear things the rest of us can't. Donna was in the right frame of mind at last. My mom? Pam wasn't too sure who had said what. No, your aunt. Your mother's sister, and mine. She was in a good mood, just not talkative. I can see ghosts and I can speak to them. Pam wondered why Donna referred to her mother as if they weren't directly related. That's just plain crazy, but I'm running out of options. I figured it was worth a shot to bring you out here and see if you can help me find a Sasquatch to prove to the world they really exist. You believe in Bigfoot, but not ghosts? Pam found this an odd way of thinking. A Bigfoot is real. Ghosts are just your imagination. UFOs? Pam asked. Too much sun and too many beers. Once the fire had burned down to just coals, Donna silently pulled a set of night vision goggles from her backpack. She scanned the woods in all directions. Pam just sat there wondering what it was she was expected to do. The bugs were out in force. They buzzed and chirped and zinged and made all their bug noises. What sounded like an army of frogs were serenading their girlfriend frogs. Something big and heavy was footing through the underbrush. It would move along at a snail's pace, munching on yummies on the ground around the trees. There's a herd of deer right over there, Madonna was pointing using the NVGs to see with. Pam, not having night vision anything, had no idea what direction Donna was looking at or pointing to. The slight glow of the campfire gave just enough light to see the rocks around it. Okay, Wonder Child, do your thing, Donna whispered in Pam's ear. What? Who? Pam had no idea who Wonder Child was. Some new superhero? Perhaps her aunt was referring to some gadget she had, like when Pam talked to her computer or her phone. You use those weird powers of yours to communicate with Sasquatch. See if you can get him to walk by. Better yet, have him come over to the campfire. Madonna sounded just a bit upset. Isn't that what you can do? Pam looked in the direction she thought Donna was looking. What exactly did my aunt tell you I could do? It seemed just a bit late to get this information, but Donna hadn't really been much of a talker. Your Aunt Sylvia told me that your Aunt Felicity had talked to your mom, Paula, and she said you could talk to otherworldly beings. Donna sounded as if she were still scanning the woods for the signs of a large, hairy man thing. I think Bigfoot comes from another world and it was stuck here on ours. So, being as he's from another world, you should be able to talk to him. That's not quite what I can do. Pam wondered how she'd gotten roped into this mess. Well then, why don't you do whatever it is you can do and see if you can find me a Sasquatch? Donna sounded as if she weren't going to take no for an answer. The moon peeped through the trees, giving Pam just enough light to see the trees around her. She closed her eyes and she tried thinking about Bigfoot and sending out her brain waves, telling the creature to come for a visit. She visualized the image of Patty walking along Bluff Creek, and then she tried imagining the creature turning around and walking towards herself instead of away. Pam visualized Patty walking kind of like her Uncle Ray. The way he swung his arms and the way she swung hers was just like the way he swung it. This led to Pam visualizing her Uncle Ray walking along Bluff Creek. He had a cup of coffee in his hand. Pam could use a cup right now. It would be hilarious if Uncle Ray came walking out of the bushes right now. Why on earth would you say that? Donna was beginning to think Pam's kid had been dropped on her head a few times. A bunch of coyotes, a group of coyotes, a pack of coyotes began to make their laughing sounds. They sounded as if they were having a much better time than Pam. She visualized the pack sitting around in the dark, telling jokes and laughing about them. There was a loud howl. What was that? Pam whispered in a very loud and frightened voice. That, my dear, was a Sasquatch. Donna was now trying to locate the beast that had just announced its presence. She scanned back and forth. There came a second howl, this time from behind them. Pam thought about that movie she had watched last summer, Willow Creek. Bob Goldthwait, he had directed it. Pam remembered how the couple were in their tent listening to Sasquatch yelling back and forth, and then she remembered how the movie ended. Oh, no. What's wrong? Donna was looking at Pam with her NVGs. You see something? Yes, that movie Willow Creek. Pam sounded as if she wished she hadn't. Oh, yeah, that was cool. I saw it in Jefferson at the Bigfoot convention. Donna went back to scanning the woods. There came a loud knocking sound. Someone, or something, was pounding on a tree with another tree. It hit 3 times and then stopped. The sound was mimicked behind Pam. We're surrounded. Pam tried to remember if Donna had brought her shotgun or if she'd left it in the Jeep. Let's go. Donna started walking in the direction of the last knocking sound. What are you, crazy? Pam didn't want to go, but she didn't want to wait and be left behind here. Why can't we just stay here? If Bigfoot wants to talk to us, he can come over to us. Pam tried to convince her aunt that the better part of valor was to hide. In the meager moonlight, Pam could see the shadow of her aunt walking away into the unknown. Well, into the trees, anyway. Pam flipped a mental coin. Heads I stay, tails I go. Her mental coin fell in the mud. Oh, shoot. Pam took off after her aunt, her bare feet finding every sharp stone on the path. Being scared to death with someone was far better than being scared to death and alone. There came what sounded like a whoop. That was followed by a second whoop, only this one was to their left. Pam found her aunt. Madonna had stopped on the trail trying to get her bearings. Pam ran into her and then grabbed hold of her belt. What if it kills us and eats us? Do you know why you get your bearings? At night, you look up at the sky and you locate the Big Dipper constellation. The Big Dipper will point you to the handle of the Little Dipper. The star in the end of the Little Dipper's handle is Polaris, the North Star. Now you know which way is north. The Big Dipper and the Little Dipper are also known as Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, the Big and Little Bears. That's why you're getting your bearings. Don't be a sissy. No one's ever talked about being eaten by Bigfoot. Donna's logic escaped Pam. The knocking sounds came from the right. Let's go. Donna started away through the darkness. Pam was still hanging onto her belt and was nearly yanked off her feet. At least this way she wouldn't get lost in the dark. Donna used her NVGs to maneuver along the trail. It was not much of a trail, just small animals used it. Pam was being whipped by limbs as they went. It felt like being beat with tiny little whips. Pam stepped into a puddle of mud. It squished up between her toes, and Donna kept going, which helped pull Pam out of the clingy mass she would otherwise have found difficult to escape from. Oh, that's gross. Pam wanted to stop and scrape the muck off her leg. Donna stopped abruptly. Pam tried to occupy the same space. Her right hand was getting sore from being yanked back and forth as her aunt scrambled through the trees. It's right over there, Donna whispered, pointing one hand to their right. Pam could just make out the extended extremity. Is he holding a knife and a fork? Pam felt kind of queasy. It just felt wrong to be running towards something that wanted to kill you and eat you. I can only see part of it. It's hiding in the brush. Donna could only see what looked like a body squatting down behind a thick clump of brush. There was a whoop from behind them, followed by knocking sound to their left and then right. Pam thought it would be a good idea to use the bathroom real quick. A limb cracked as something stepped on it. This was followed by what sounded like a foot stepping in the mud. The squelching of some foot being pulled from the same mud. A limb cracked again. Something was getting closer. Pam considered just passing out so she would miss the whole death and consumption that was about to befall her. She felt her arm being yanked as Donna pulled away from her, and this caused her body to go in the direction of impending death, which was just wrong. What was that? Who's there? A voice didn't belong to Donna, and it more than likely wasn't one of Pam's voices. Donna stopped dragging her niece through the underbrush. "What are you guys doing out here?" Pam realized that she had closed her eyes as a way to not see her impending doom. Opening just one eye to lessen the impact of seeing anything scary, she saw shadows of what looked like people gathering around in front of her aunt. "We're squatching, the same as you." This was from what looked like a young man. The moonlight was just enough to make out shapes, but no details. "Who's the newbie?" one of the shadows asked. Donna looked at Pam. "This is my sister's kid. She wanted to come squatching, so I brought her along." Pam considered this an odd way of saying niece. Donna continued. "Pam, this is Mangy McDougal and his sister Nancy." A few niceties were exchanged. "Whoop" came from behind Pam. Nancy pulled a two-way radio from her belt. "Hey, knock it off. It's just Donna Fack and some kid." Pam didn't much like being called some kid, but she didn't much like being in the woods in the dark either. As she was still clutching Donna's belt as if it were her only hope of salvation. Two more Squatch hunters came walking from the darkness behind them. Looking around, Pam took in the fact that everyone was dressed for war. Either they had army fatigues with lots of pockets filled with squatching gear, or they had on hiking gear used to trek up the side of Mount Fujiyama. Now, this was a bit redundant since Yama is Japanese for mountain. There were vests bristling with things for hunting elusive creatures, and things for surviving in the woods, and things for doing cool things while in the woods. Pam felt just the tiniest bit underdressed in just her t-shirt and short pants. Fortunately, she was also not the subject of anyone's attention. "Have you heard from any of the Sasquatch seekers? I haven't seen them since last Friday." This was asked by Wilbur Hatchersonson. "I can go the rest of my life without bumping up against those pimple brains." Donna wasn't very fond of the Sasquatch seekers. Their methods were less than dignified. "It's just that Daniel borrowed a set of NVGs from us, and we kind of need them back," Wilbur put in. "You should know better than to loan those bottom dwellers anything." Donna really didn't much like the Sasquatch seekers. "You guys got a campsite around here?" Nancy asked. "Yes, we're over on the hilltop." Donna said this as if hoping these hunters would not wish to join her. "And y'all?" We're not camping. I have to work in the morning." Pam could feel the sense of overwhelming relief as if flowing from her aunt. "Yeah, some of us have jobs and things." This from Gus, who had joined them recently. "Well, don't want to keep you guys. We'll be heading back then." Don turned and dragged Pam back into the woods. By the time they arrived back at their campsite, Pam was ready to quit and go home. But how to broach the subject to her aunt? With so many people running around out here, I'll bet any Sasquatch is miles away by now. The others are leaving soon. Then we'll be all alone out here." Donna made Pam feel so much better. "I'm not really helping out much. Do you think just maybe I should, take off too? I'm just getting in your way." Pam was trying to sound brave. "Oh, sorry you feel that way. Okay, see ya." Donna plopped down by what was left of their fire. Pam looked out at the dark trees in every direction. She wondered which direction would get her back to the Jeep and then to her car. The coyotes were once more enjoying a good joke amongst themselves. An owl began to hoot. Pam looked at her hiking boots, still trying to dry out by the embers. Maybe I'll stick around a bit. Maybe I can help out somehow." She sat down on the ground across from her aunt, and neither of them could think of anything to say. Chapter 5. The Light of Day. The sound of birds chirping snuck into Pam's brain and began to itch her consciousness. like the cricket that chirps in the corner of the room that slowly drives you nuts. She opened her eyes and slowly managed to focus on the dark green canopy just a few feet above her head. Sitting up, it took her brain a few minutes to catch up with her body. Tent, woods, sweaty, shower? The tent was too low to stand up in, so Pam scooted along on her backside till her body was clear of the opening. The campsite looked a lot worse in the light of day. There was just the tent, a ring of stones for the fire, and a pile of gear. Pam's right leg was encased in dry mud. She tried stomping her foot, but this only caused her foot to hurt. Oh man, this is nasty. And next, she tried scraping her leg with a stick. This only got the stick to break. What to do? What to do? She looked for some water to soften up the dried mud. There was the stream just a short ways from camp, and best of all, she could see the tent from the stream. No more running around getting lost. She dipped her mud-encrusted leg and scrubbed the mud off. Pam looked down at her foot and realized this was the same foot she had glued to one of her shoes using a can of cheese woos on her trip to San Antonio. I keep abusing my left foot. Looking at the clean, clear water, Pam considered jumping in and rinsing off some of the sweat from last night's misadventure. Something made a growling sound in the brush. Never mind, Pam hot-footed it back to camp. Donna had just gotten back from wherever she had gotten to earlier. You won't believe what I found just over there. She pointed in the same direction and then a few other directions. She pointed out where she had found the cast. There must have been a Bigfoot or a little Bigfoot running around last night. She set the fresh plaster cast on the ground at her feet. I found this just a few hours ago. I cast it, and then I looked around for more tracks. She was brushing the excess dirt from the plaster. It looks as if a juvenile Bigfoot came near our camp last night. Pam looked at the footprint in white. I would have thought a Bigfoot would have a bigger foot. That's why I think it was just a baby foot, or a baby Bigfoot. Donna was still brushing away dirt. This track was real deep. The thing must have weighed a few 100 pounds. Where did you say you found it? Pam looked at her now mud-free leg. Just over there on that trail we went down last night. Donna was focused on her latest find. Nobody would be stupid enough to run around out here barefoot. What's for breakfast? Or make that lunch? The sun was already straight overhead. Well, we can have some more beans with rice, or how about some rice with beans? Pam wished she'd stayed home. Now that they had filled their inner workings with fuel, it was time to do the bigfooting stuff. We'll set the trail cams up along the trail we took last night. Then I want to scout our perimeter. We can see if maybe there are any more tracks out there. Donna was super hyped after finding that print earlier. Pam dug a clean pair of socks from her book bag, and there was a plastic bag stuffed down under her t-shirts. Pulling it out, Pam found a peanut butter and jelly sandwich along with a big slice of cake. It was now a peanut butter and jelly cake. The two had been melded together at some point yesterday. I'll just save you for tonight. Pam was quite full of rice and beans. She laced up her boots and got ready to hit the trail. You need a walking stick? Donna had this nasty-looking branch in one hand. This'll do. She slashed at it with her knife. This was no ordinary knife. It was a knife some folks dream about. It was long and sharp. It looked as if it would cut you just for looking at it wrong. The knife went up and down and back and forth a few dozen times, and then Donna handed over her work. Pam admired the now beautifully sculpted and a very straight staff. Wow, thanks. I always wanted one of these. It was 4 feet long, and Donna had wrapped the hand end with a green paracord. Let's ride. Donna started out on foot. That's just an expression, you know. Pam fell in behind her. Cassandra went so far as to try asking Prince Wappo what his thoughts were about Hilda and Hildy. Tell me the truth. Are they the same person or not? She had the prince sitting on the edge of her massage table. The prince was more interested in having his belly rubbed than answering any questions. He stretched his legs out in two directions and waited for the hand to get started. Cassandra would have been quite surprised had the cat answered her, seeing as Carol was the only one that he spoke to. Just nod your head if she's as crazy as Susie. Cassandra felt just the slightest bit actually hugely wrong, referring to Susie as being crazy, even if she had been as mad as a hatter. A split personality didn't come close to describing the mess going on inside that woman's brain. Prince Wappo had no use for the former receptionist who had changed personalities faster than most people change their socks. He licked one white foot and considered what he could say in order to get the front desk worker sorted out. Cassandra had an idea. Let's go see Carol. Maybe you can tell her if Hilda and Hildy are actually sisters or the same person. They walked along the trail till Donna saw the perfect tree. That one. We'll put a camera there. She set her pack back down, and it wasn't as full as it had been yesterday. Pulling a trail cam from inside, she showed Pam how to secure it so it was facing in the right direction. Now you push this button here, and you flip this switch. Next, you turn this dial to 5. No, make that 3. After that, you set this switch to auto, and you close the door. Now, if anything comes within 50 feet of the sensor, the camera will fire off 3 shots every 3 seconds. Donna pulled her GPS out and logged the location. Pam thought she should try her GPS as well, and looking at her phone, she had 0 bars. Your phone won't do much out here except as a camera. You need a satellite unit like this one. She showed Pam a real honest-to-goodness GPS. Do you happen to have a satellite phone, too? Pam wanted to say hi to her mom, along with a few things concerning her sister. Paula's sister, that is. No such luck. Those things cost money, and I don't know anybody I'd want to talk to anyway. What if we need the police or an ambulance? Pam was just now thinking about these things. Don't need no cops, and try not to get hurt. Pam wondered what the deal was between Donna and the police. They walked a ways along the trail until Donna saw another tree she liked. This one would be perfect if we could get up to one of those branches. Donna placed one hand on Pam's arm and gave her a big smile. Pam looked at the tree and then her aunt. When you say we, are you implying me? How nice of you to offer. Donna dropped her backpack and pulled the camera out. You're going to need both hands to get up there. I'll tie a piece of paracord to the camera and then to your belt. When you get up there, just pull the camera up. Pam looked up at the tree in question. The first branch was 9 feet up. The next one looked to be about 100. Well, maybe it's 14 feet. Pam figured if she fell, she'd only break both legs, and then she could survive long enough for her aunt to drag her through the woods back to the jeep before she would succumb to her injuries. Donna stood with her back against the tree. She leaned forward with her hands cradled for Pam's foot. Ready, go. Pam refused to consider being flung up into the tree of death. As Donna hefted her skyward, Pam did her best to stay upright. She especially tried to keep her right leg straight since it was the one holding her up. Can't reach the limb. Pam tried to grab the tree trunk, but there just was nothing to hold on to. Step on my shoulder. Paula was doing her best to not drop her sister's kid. Pam felt around with her left toe, trying to find what she hoped was her aunt's shoulder. When her foot found purchase, she pushed upwards, her right hand seeking the lowest branch. The bark was rough, but Pam managed to hold on. Now for the hard part. As she pushed upwards, her right hand seeking the lowest branch, trying to hang on, she tried to pull herself up. All that time spent running up and down the stairs at work, Pam had neglected her upper body strength, or rather her lack thereof. She found something for her right foot and managed to push down with it. "You're standing on my head," Donna yelled from below. Pam didn't dare look down. She pulled and pushed, and slowly her head came up past the branch. She worked her hands along the branch and then swung one foot up over the limb. Pam floundered around, trying to get foot number 2 to join foot number 1. It was anything near a gymnastics maneuver, but Pam managed to get her foot, along with her body, up and onto the limb she sought. "There, that wasn't so bad. Now see if you can get a little higher. I want to be able to catch the entire trail." Pam absolutely refused to climb any higher. She got both feet under her and then pushed upwards. Now the next branch was chest level with her. Pam slipped one arm up and over the tree and got busy with her hiking boots, trying to gain a foothold on the skin of the tree. After way too much grunting and groaning, Pam got on to the next limb. "You think you could get up to the next one, a little higher?" Donna was so brave, standing down there on solid ground. "I think it would be better up higher." Pam looked at the next branch, the one that was a few feet up, but that would make her fall that much worse. Oh, no. How about there's too many pine needles and the camera won't be able to see the trail?" Donna looked at the tree and then the trail and then at Pam. "Well, if you say so, now pull the camera up and see if you can secure it." Pam reached around to the back of her shorts. The paracord was tied to her belt. She tried to untie it using just one hand, since the other was busy keeping her alive. The knot was a square knot, which was a bit hard to untie using one hand behind your back, even if that hand wasn't tied. With enough time and wiggling, Pam managed to get her shorts turned slightly sideways so she could work on the knot. She found it impossible to look at the knot without looking past it to the ground below. True, it was only 15 feet, but to Pam, considering what would become of her if she were to take a tumble, an impending death tumble, it looked a lot higher. This was what King Kong was looking at from the top of that building in that movie. Her perspective was just a bit skewed. Now, with the cord untied and her pants worked back around to a comfortable position, Pam got to work hauling the camera up to the tree. The hard plastic case lived up to its claim, and the camera didn't dissolve into tiny pieces each time it bounced off the trunk. "Okay, now tie it so the lens is pointing that way." Donna aimed one hand down the trail. The paracord was way too long, but Pam just kept wrapping it around the limb until there was just enough to secure the trail cam. "Now set the auto lens and hop on down." "Set the auto lens?" Pam looked at the knobs and dials and switches. "Let's see, turn this to 3, then flip this up." Pam looked at her handiwork and felt as if it was screwed up as all could get. "How do I know if I got this thing right?" "There should be a green light on under the cover." Donna made a green light gesture with one hand. "I got it? Good. Now jump down." "Are you kidding me? It must be 30 feet down." Pam felt dizzy just looking at it. "Drop down to the next branch and then Spider-Man on down." Donna wondered what Paula had been teaching her kid. It sure wasn't tree climbing 101. "What's a Spider-Man?" Pam slipped down one branch, lessening the fall by a third. Donna tried to not roll her eyes. "You grab the branch with your hands and you lower one leg down, keeping the other foot draped over the limb. Once your moving leg is hanging straight down, you lower the trailing foot." Pam hit the ground at her feet. Pam did manage to land on her feet, but she wound up on her backside. Ooh, I think I broke my butt. Don't be ridiculous. There's no bones back there. Donna hoped she was right. I think there are. Anyway, it hurts. Pam felt the way she had the last time she came down hard on her backside. Can you stand up? Just a little worried. Pam got her feet under her. What was that about Spider-Manning down? As she brushed the dirt from her clothes. I'm glad I won't have to ever do that again. Well, you do need to go back up and retrieve the camera later. You ever heard of a ladder? Would you be willing to schlep it all over the woods if I had? No, but I just kind of would have liked the option. Pam felt better now that she was on solid ground and not bleeding. Donna looked up at the trail cam in the tree. You did all right. Let's go see about the next one. Pam thought they were just wandering around, lost in the woods, but Donna somehow managed to keep track of where they were in relation to the camp. After nearly 6 hours, they stepped into a clearing, and there was the tent. I need a bath or a shower or a few dozen cats to come lick me off. Pam wanted to collapse and sleep for a few weeks. There's a stream just over there, Donna pointed out over one shoulder. Be my guest. What, in the woods? It was one thing to wipe off in the dark near the safety of the tent, but to bathe in the woods? How primitive. Pam looked around as if there might be a few thousand people nearby. The last time I was over there, I thought I heard a bear or a mountain lion or a tiger. You want to take my gun? Donna held out her pistol. It was in a military-style holster hung from a belt. The same belt Pam had been drugged through the woods by. Pam knew about guns. She knew the bullets came out of one end, the one with the little round hole in it. Her dad had shown her his pistol, explaining how it worked and how if you weren't careful you'd blow your head off. He said he was going to take her to the range to do some shooting, but always wound up too busy. Pam figured she was more dangerous to herself than any pack of bear wolves. I'd better not. I'll just scream if I see anything. Pam grabbed her book bag and walked over to the stream. She looked around in every direction. Then she took time to look again. No one was there, but Pam didn't think it wise to disrobe in public, even if it was deep in the woods. Peeling off her t-shirt and shorts, Pam got busy scrubbing away the last 2 days' worth of ick. A twig snapped. Pam froze. She put her ears into high gear, listening to nothing. Well, there was a lot of listening. Birds chirping, wind blowing, trees swaying around a bit, making swaying noises. With all these enormous pine trees in every direction, even in the daytime, it was impossible to see more than a few feet in any one direction, except straight up. But there weren't too many people to be found up there, and Pam looked up anyway. When nothing came crashing through the brush at her, she got back to scrubbing and rinsing. The clean t-shirt and shorts felt great. Now, Pam was acquiring a nasty pile of laundry, though. It dawned on her she had no idea how long her aunt was planning on staying. I should have asked and found out. I only brought a few things. Pam hated being sweaty and smelly. It was getting dark when Pam got back to camp. Donna had a huge collapsible water container. She was dipping water into a pan, boiling it and filling her water bottles. Pam already knew about drinking water. If it came from anything questionable, you'd be better off treating it before you tried drinking it. There was a condition called number 3. Number 3 was when you made number 2 from your number 1. Number 3 was when you made number 1 from your number 2. It smelled and it burned and it was nasty. Bad water leads to explosive diarrhea, which leads to dehydration, which leads to more diarrhea, which leads, well, you get the idea. Tonight, I want to try something unique and different. Madonna was filling the last bottle. We're going to walk out the trails we set the cameras on. If there's a Sasquatch out there, it might just see us go by and think it's cool to wander around where we just walked. I don't think anyone ever tried it that way. She stuffed a few bottles into her bag and then handed a few to Pam. The night birds were out looking for night bugs to invite them to dinner. They were all making a lot of noise. Frogs were out looking for dates and eating a few of the bugs as well. With so many creatures eating bugs, you would think there wouldn't be any bugs left. The bugs were busy making more bugs and lots of noise as well. The coyotes were out laughing at their latest joke. It sounded as if they were several packs, each trying to out-humor each other. The snakes were the only ones not making noise. The moonlight was just a bit brighter tonight, and Pam found she could keep track of Donna as long as she stayed out of the shadows. On more than one occasion, she had to pull some effort into locating her aunt. They walked slowly along the path, Donna using her NVGs to search the trees around them. Pam had been told to scan around them with her superpowers to see if she could spot any hairy creatures. Unfortunately, every time Pam focused on her extra abilities, she lost track of Donna. It usually went something like Pam would clear her mind and try to not think about anything. Then she would think about what might be going on back at the office. Then she would worry about there was no way she could get a hold of the guys to be sure Hildy hadn't set fire to the mansion or that Stanley hadn't had a bad turn and eaten Cassandra. Stanley was a werewolf, but not a bad guy. Not being able to call anyone got Pam to worrying about her folks. What if her dad had an accident at work and Paula was desperately trying to contact Pam to beg her to come to the hospital to say goodbye to him as he drifted away into the afterlife? Would he come visit her as a ghost? Would he wind up living in the attic along with Sharma and Sergeant Dingleopagus? Then Pam would realize she was out in the dark woods with her aunt, and she didn't know where her aunt had gotten to while Pam was visualizing her darkest fears. Pam could just follow the trail, but this was more of a suggestion of a trail. Pam spent a good part of the night trying to locate her missing aunt. Let's take a break. We'll sit here and see what we can see. Donna plopped down in the dirt. Her NVGs held up to scan the trees. She didn't seem to have noticed that Pam wasn't with her all that much during the walk. Did you see anything with your third eye? No, not much. Pam was ready to call it quits and go home. She wanted to see her mom, not Bigfoot. She slapped at a mosquito that was buzzing around her ear. That's a male mosquito. You can tell by the buzzing sound. They do that to distract you and cause you to try slapping them. The female mosquito doesn't make any sound, it just bites you. So if you hear a mosquito, don't worry about it. It's when you don't hear anything that you have to worry. So, how am I supposed to know when to slap? Pam tried to ignore the buzzing sounds. You know your mom was the one that got me interested in Bigfoot? Donna was starting to kind of like her sister's kid. She did? She never mentioned any kind of interest in anything out of the ordinary. She saw a movie at the drive-in. I don't know if she went to see the movie or the boy who took her. Donna thought about it for a second. What was his name? I don't think it was Al. Donna figured maybe she shouldn't say anything more about that guy. Anyway, the movie was called The Legend of Boggy Creek. I asked her about her date, and she told me about the movie instead. And Donna remembered the guy's name. It was Herbie. Herbert? Herbert something or other. Maybe Pam shouldn't know any more about her mother's past life. The movie was filmed just over the border from here in Arkansas. Donna remembered Herbie. He was a hunk. Too bad he went and turned to the dark side. Pam was more intrigued by the story of her mother's former crush than any movie about Bigfoot. Who was this guy? Was it serious? Did Mom say anything else? Yes, the creature was running around Fark, Arkansas, and this got me interested. A bunch of us drove over to have a look. As we were scouting out the field near the creek, I saw something. What about the guy, Mr. Something or other? Pam's mother wouldn't allow her to date, not until she was married. Now, Pam wasn't too sure how that was supposed to work, but that was what Paula had said. Her last date, well, there had been 7 girls and 2 boys and that one kid that nobody was sure about. They had 2 parents along, and one of them was a cop. Everyone screamed and ran except me. Donna wasn't about to mention that she had fainted. I stayed there and I didn't move, which is true enough. When the sun came up and I recovered, I went looking for tracks and the others who had driven off without me. I found a few smudges, but nothing I could cast, and I had nothing to cast with anyway. What about my mom? Pam wanted to know why Paula could run around with something or other and not allow Pam to even be in the same room alone with a guy. Well, except George, but he was 60 and he slept through the night, while Pam got lost inside that haunted outhouse. Did she keep seeing this guy? Your mom didn't much like hunting Bigfoot, and she was more the stay home and bake kind of gal. Donna was taking a trip down memory lane. What about this guy something or other? Pam latched on like a small dog on someone else's toy. We should get going. Maybe we'll see something over that way. Donna got to her feet and started down the trail. Pam jumped up and hurried behind, intent on learning more about her mom's past life. Can you see anything using your special powers? Donna was having no luck with her night vision. Pam was about to ask for more on her mom's misdeeds, then thought better of it. Did she really want to know? That which has been learned cannot be unlearned. And she let her mind drift just a bit. The coyotes were doing their impersonation of a comedy show. The birds were swooping around, making swooping sounds. Bugs were being very buggy. Something snapped a branch. What was that? She whispered. I don't know, but it came from over that way. Let's go see. Donna started moving through the trees. Pam fell in behind her aunt, trying to stay close without stepping on her heels. The brush was thick and made movement difficult. Something snagged on Pam's shirt. Wait a second, I'm stuck. And she felt around with her fingers, trying to find what was holding her. There was a thorn bush stuck through her shirt. She tried to pull it loose, but only managed to tear the shirt. Great, all I need is to be disrobed by a bush. She felt the hole. It wasn't too big, but it was one of her favorite t-shirts. And she'd had to pay for it with her own money. Pam started down the trail, looking for her once again missing aunt. Where'd you go? I can't see you, Pam whispered into the night. The coyotes began to laugh at Pam. Oh, knock it off. It's not funny. Pam tried to answer her insane giggles. Giggles? Coyote sounds, like they were laughing, but not like they were giggling. Who or what might that have been? A branch went crunch to her left. Pam instinctively turned to her right and moved down the trail that she thought she could just make out. There was a rustling sound that seemed to be behind her. Pam started moving at a more expeditious pace. Not that she was scared or anything, it was more like she was getting there, though. Pam tried to see if her aunt had come this way or not. She looked at the ground at her feet. This helped out not at all. Pam got down on her knees and used her flashlight. Aside from a few hundred bug tracks and bird tracks and something with claws and 4 feet, the trail had no sign on it. Pam considered turning around and going back the way she'd come. There was a sound behind her, like someone trying to sneak up on her, but doing a bad job of it. Pam thought It just might be her aunt. But then, why would her aunt be sneaking? She's trying to scare me. Pam wondered if this was one of the voices in her head or her own thoughts. No, the voice had been quiet for some time now. What was it one had said? They were more scared than Pam? I should have stayed home. The sneaking up sound went crunch. Pam got to her feet and started moving along the trail. Just a casual saunter. There came a growl. Pam moved from casual saunter to a brisk walk. There was another growl, this time closer. Pam took off at a run. Running in the dark was bad. Running in the dark woods was worse. Pam found focusing on the trail was near impossible, but whatever had growled was now crashing along behind her, and it was gaining. Putting her arms up in front of her face, she began to make her own trail. The smaller limbs did their best to punish her for daring to pass by them. The trees did stop her. And she would hit a tree, spin to the side, and then take off in whichever direction she found as she was facing. On one occasion, Pam skidded around a huge pine, scraping her skin on the bark. She had flung one arm out to keep her balance, but only wound up on the other side. A huge limb was just visible, laying across the trail. Pam considered jumping over it, but then just crashed to her stomach and skidded on the ground under it. As soon as she was most of the way under, she got her feet under her and took off at a dead sprint. Her t-shirt was torn down the front and the back. The sound of big claws bounding over the downed tree filled Pam's head with fear and dread. She knew she couldn't outrun very many animals, especially hungry ones that ate people for a living, but she hoped she could wear the big cat out enough it would consider looking for something less taxing as a food source. The sound of many paws hitting the ground gave Pam the energy she needed to pick up the pace some more. A stream was just ahead. Pam splashed through it as if running for her life. Oh yes, she was. Her legs were growing sore, her chest hurt. She had no idea where she was or where she was going. Fear was doing her thinking. The moon was playing hide and seek with a bunch of clouds. It grew darker as the clouds became thicker. Pam ran headlong into a thick patch of brush. She was flung off her feet and landed on her back. The air was knocked from her lungs. The sound of paws on dirt came from just above her head. Several dark shapes converged on her exposed body. Meanwhile, back in civilization, Paula was hoping Pam was enjoying her visit with Donna. Donna was a bit odd, but then so were all the people Pam worked with. Donna thought that just maybe someday she'd see about getting back together with her younger sister. Sarah, not having Pam to hang around with, had taken to following her mother instead. Pam's mother, not her own. Do you think Pam will find Bigfoot? I think if anyone can do it, it's Pam. Sarah had already filled Paula in on everything that had happened when they were snowed in. Paula didn't have the heart to inform the tween, as she was there the whole time. When do you think she'll be back? Paula thought about this. She should be back soon. She has school next week. Paula thought it might have been a good idea to ask her sister how long she needed to borrow Pam. I'm sure Pam will be back before the weekend. She should have asked, but then she hadn't actually spoken to Donna, not directly. Sarah got busy filling Paula in on the great adventure she'd had during the snowstorm last week. Pam did the only thing she could think of to not witness her own death. She closed her eyes. This is the same defensive posture a possum takes when it encounters anything of a hostile nature. Growling and snapping, the pack closed on their intended victim. A quick sniff and then pow, right in the kisser. Something warm and wet slapped across Pam's face. It left a gooey wet trail of slime as it went. Pam didn't want to see what was about to turn her into dinner, but curiosity got the better of her. She opened one eye. The pack was upon her. There were maybe 15 or 20 of these hairy beasts. They ran about making hungry beast sounds. They showed off their mighty choppers as they went. A second wet object traced a line across her leg. Pam looked at the pack of vicious beasts and nearly laughed. They were wolves, or at least they looked kind of like wolves, only kind of on the small side. If Chihuahuas had been wolves, this is what they would have looked like. The biggest one was about 6 pounds of fierce aggression. It opened its jaws and yawned. Pam managed to sit up. The Chihuahua wolves began to poke around the brush, looking for something a little less massive and a lot more chewable. Several had tiny little vests on, and one was wearing a sweater. The growling sound did resemble a very small motor running, more of a squeak than an actual growl. The pack sniffed around Pam as if she might be hiding some tasty treats in her pockets. Several tongues left behind their tiny wet little marks. If not for the lack of light, Pam might have enjoyed this activity. The clouds had gotten serious about not letting the moon light up the woods. The flash of light gave Pam an excellent view of the pack as a lightning bolt struck something nearby. There came a rumbling sound from the south. The wind began to whip the tops of the trees into a frenzy. It's not going to rain, is it? A cloud burst and dumped its load on Pam. It's not so much rain as cascading. Pam had already taken a bath of sorts and felt this was a waste of clean water. If I had some shampoo, I'd do my hair. Pam got her back against the tree and tried to weather the storm. Donna felt the air moving around her. She sniffed the breeze and came to the conclusion rain was imminent. We should get back to camp. It's going to get nasty soon. Donna looked around for Paula's kid. Where'd you go? Donna pulled a poncho from her bag and then began looking for her missing companion. The tree kept some of the rain off Pam, but it did nothing for the mud being splashed up around her. It soon covered her legs and her body. Oh, this is just so much fun. Pam tried to push the wet hair out of her face. How did you spend your summer vacation? Oh, I nearly got eaten by a giant worm. Then I nearly got eaten by a demon. A vampire tried to suck my blood, and I just about froze to death in a snowstorm, and I survived all of that to drown in a mud puddle deep in the piney woods. A shadow moved in the darkness. Donna, am I glad to see you? Donna had given up looking for Paula's kid, and she wondered how she was going to explain this mishap. Remember that time I lost your jacket? You better sit down. Nah, that didn't sound right. Donna was back at camp, sitting in the tent, watching the rain slowly wash the rocks away from the fire pit. How about you and Al ever think of having another kid? Pam would have screamed, but she was too busy passing out. The enormous, hair-covered beast was upon her. The world went even darker as her head hit the mud. Pam came part way awake. As her head was bouncing about, her mouth would fill with hair. She was upside down, suspended over the ground, which was speeding by her out-of-focus eyes. She tried to clear the hair from her mouth. Ick, nasty, ugh. She put one hand to her mouth to try to remove a handful of offending substance. Some of the hair belonged to her, but most of it was attached to her abductor. Her abductor? Pam tried to see what or who was hustling her through the woods in such an unnerving position. She was draped over one huge shoulder. Her legs must be on the other side because they weren't on the side where her head was. This made Pam just a bit happier, since it meant she wasn't folded in half, about to become someone's barbecue. From her position, Pam could look down the back of this overly large person. The rain was making seeing much nearly impossible. Perhaps it was a park ranger who came to save her from the rain. He put on his best fur coat to do it. A very tall, hairy park ranger. Too bad they weren't in a state park. Great, I've been abducted by a bear, and she's taking me home to feed her cubs. Pam didn't want to be witness to anyone's death, especially her own. She tried to pass out again. Looking down at the moving ground above her head, being upside down, Pam took note of the fact there were only two legs. She found this to be a bit puzzling. Not knowing a lot about bear, she guessed they could walk upright. Maybe this bear would be like one of the stories she read about when she was little, something like the fourth bear, if she was lucky. The Fourth Bear is a great story written by Jasper Fforde, and he spells it with two F's. It's one of the nursery crime novels. Pam thought about using one of her ninja maneuvers to escape the clutches of this hairy fiend. She ran through her catalog of great fighting movements she knew. It didn't take long since she knew absolutely nothing about ninjas except they wore a lot of black stuff. The thought entered her head. It was time to be violently sick. If nothing else, perhaps it would put this beast off about eating what amounted to be a sick young girl. How can I make myself look unappetizing? Even though her stomach was in an uproar, Pam managed to hang on to her dinner. And she was now getting a headache from being jostled around in the head down position. And with that, I'm going to take a break. Be sure and tune in next time for the continuing misadventures of Pam Bogus. Till next time, this is Chris James for Storytime.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things that happen here, how stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?